a better check, make sure of, is that you guys can be heard. I think we're already live. Give me just a second, making sure audio is all good. I think it is, so I guess we'll find out in a minute. Done. Well, yep. Hey, everybody. Happy Wine Wednesday. Personally sipping on some Chardonnay. I apologize that we're late. I've not been feeling very good, and this has been like the week from hell for me. I have been running, never stop, never get a chance to catch my breath, and now I'm feeling a little poopy. So going light with some Chardonnay, but I still wanted to come and jump in here and talk to you guys, even if just for a quickie. And I've already got Holly and Ray and, Holly and Ray and Cheryl. Sorry, see, brain's gone tonight. With me, so we'll just chat and see anything that you guys say in the comments, any questions, anything that's going on with you, we'll cover. I did want to tell you I spoke with Dan yesterday, and he had an appointment tonight, but he is very close to finishing the preparedness presentation that he's going to come do on Wine Wednesday. And also, Heather messaged me and let me know that, oh gosh, now I'm getting my names twisted. It's Heather that has the Sea Shed, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's for some reason my brain is not working tonight, y'all. Excuse me. Anyways, so Heather says either this coming week or the week after, she's going to be done with the shed and she's going to come on Wine Wednesday and give us a tour of the sea shed. So very excited for that. I don't know, my voice doesn't sound excited. I'm telling you guys, I don't feel very good, but really I am very excited for that. Can't wait to see it. I posted it on Instagram, crediting her, but I'm ready and excited for the tour. So, speaking of tours, Cheryl, how's your plumbing coming? Uh-oh, did they freeze? Oh, I hate when that happens. Well, my computer's just going wanky here. Hang on, guys. I'm gonna try to get them back. Let's see what's going on. Hey, everybody watching. Why is Zoom frozen? Why is this computer? Sigh. I should have restarted it. I knew I should have restarted it. Are you there, Cheryl? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, let's see if while we're live I can jump back in. What fun. Give me just a sec, guys. I know you're just seeing them frozen. They've completely left me. I should have just canceled tonight, but I wanted to see how all of you are doing. So let me know how you're doing. I'm going to try to get them back, and we'll go from there, I suppose. But what's going on in your Seahorse? Oh, the other thing I could tell you guys about is I have really done a come around on the all-in-one tank. It was, when I did the Wine Wednesday a few weeks ago and showed you guys about how I was having flow problems and everything, I finally got the pump in, so there's more flow, and I directed it the way you guys advised me to, and it seems a lot better. The seahorses are more active. The boys are still chasing the poor girl, but that's to be expected. And she's getting to the point where she's almost too big to fit under rocks anymore. So hopefully we'll. Oh, come on. All right, I'm trying, guys. Give me just a second. If not, man, I'm telling you, I just don't feel good tonight. So if it's kind of a wreck, that's okay. We'll be here next week, of course. All right, let's see. And I don't know why Zoom is having so much trouble lately. I mean, maybe it's just because I needed to restart the computer, but I know I'm rambling, y'all. I'm sorry. It's just been that day. And a couple other things I can tell you about while I'm trying to figure out why it's telling me leave and start. Let's see what happens. Anyways, I have, if anybody is on Instagram, um, very, very cool female named Leah did an interview with us for Women in Reefing. And so that will be coming. It should have been come out today or yesterday, but I am now almost done with it. I'm going to have it posted tonight. So make sure to watch out for that. And also, we will, I'm stumbling over my words, guys. Anyways, what I was saying is, also, please pay attention. I'm going to share, we're doing the Pico giveaway. So really serious, we have a sponsor that's giving away a really cute Pico tank. There's an example in the Pico video on the Women in Reefing channel of the Pico that we're giving away, but we're giving away Pico and the light, and I believe some rock, rubble or whatever that would go in the Pico. So make sure to get into that contest and win yourself a Pico. Welcome back, guys. Sorry for all the troubles. Miss Cheryl, how's your plumbing coming? Weren't you setting up a bunch of tanks? Uh-oh, I don't think you guys can hear
To bring the lights up, they hooked trails and started them swimming around the tank.
Oh,
So
wow.
they're definitely getting close. It won't
And
be
and
long.
guys, I know
I may have to buy some more Fritz Turbo.
Fritz Turbo Store, yeah. I know you couldn't hear her for a second. I think that's fixed now. I'm pretty sure. But what she was, just to quick recap, what she said was, all her fry tanks are coming along great. But Cheryl, what do you mean you're trying to get all the salinity right? Are you having trouble with it, or?
Oh no, I just basically I filled the tubs and the sumps with RODI rather
Hmm,
than me hauling it over and dumping buckets. And now, so I'm adding salt mix to bring it to exactly where I want it. And when they're
gotcha.
empty, I have to be careful and monitor and pay attention to what my salinity is on them.
I
When
Looks
they're
like
gotcha.
wet and
Dan's
dry,
showing
it's
us that
easy.
the hurricane's not affecting them any.
Dan, the hurricane's not affecting you at all?
No.
Well, look at the picture he's showing. Does that look like a hurricane?
Is it?
No.
No, no. Hey, I
No,
wanted to
I'm
say,
trying to find my halo to go with it.
oh, he looks like
Wrong
he's.
color.
Hey Heather, I don't know if you heard at the very beginning, but while I was rambling trying to fix Zoom, I let them know that you're going to give us the Sea Shed tour soon. We're really excited for that. And hey Dylan's, how you doing? So, how are you doing, Dan? Anything new?
No, not much. The storm was a complete miss for us. I mean,
Good.
it was a non-event. I watched it the whole time and saw what was happening. I mean, I've been watching it for 2 weeks actually, but um, it even with where it hit, it really wasn't that bad. I mean, down here, you got to get a strong Cat 1 into Cat 2 before people down here really get shook up.
I saw something on the
Well, my,
news where a woman was saying that exact thing. She was like, "What? We just get ready and hunker down. Come on, what's wrong with you? This is not even a
Well,
Cat 4." Go ahead.
well, I mean, that's true, but the thing is that this area's been hit so many times that most of the places around have generators. So the grocery stores can stay functional. The hardware stores stay functional. Many of the gas stations are able to pump gas. And, we've been hit enough that structurally things have been adapted and changed. Now it's been a while, so there'll be a lot of debris and a lot of tree limbs and stuff like that that'll come down. So there'll be power outages. But, really and truly, it's less than a cat 2, it's really not that big of a deal for us.
Mm,
Now, having said that, in New England, we got hit with Bob, which was a cat strong Cat 1, low Cat 2, and we were out of power for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
Mm.
and things were shut down, and it was a mess. So it really depends upon the area. If I was, say, in Georgia along the coastline, they took a direct hit and haven't had one in years. They're going to have a lot of things that are going to be without. So much of this depends upon the area and what people are used to.
Right.
And
Yeah.
down here, most people have already got most of their hurricane prep stuff up. Um, most people around this time are really starting to stock up and prepare. Um, we're going into, we're not quite into the peak of the season, but we're going into the part of the season where the likelihood starts increasing. Realistically, the last 2 weeks of August through September into the first week of October is when we worry the most down here.
Hmm.
That's when the storms will be the strongest. You get a storm this time of the year, usually it's barely a Cat 1, if a Cat 1.
Well, we're still excited for
Well, my
your.
sister lives in Lakeland.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
My sister lives in Lakeland and has for many years. And my nieces all live between basically Orlando, Lakeland, Tampa area. And my sister called me today and she says, I got a call from the doctor's office today. So I went in for my checkup because they got all these cancellations. So I was able to get in 2 weeks early. That's
Yeah.
how worried she was.
Now, conversely, I had an appointment this evening, and I don't know the reason, but um, the the lady that was supposed to come in and draw blood was a no-show. And I still saw the doctor and had my other stuff done, but I got to go back next Wednesday to get the blood drawn because she didn't make it for whatever reason.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
I suspect it had something to do with that, but
Yeah.
there are some people that will panic at the slightest bit. Um, but for the most part down here, I mean, tropical force storm, and we're still out there trying to get the damn grill lit.
Right. And so,
Well,
and like
it's like,
like you said, when it hits a place like Georgia that's not as used to it, so you're saying it's more that they'll run out of things, they'll not have things
Well,
because
it's
they,
tougher because, first of all, people don't know how to prep.
right.
Okay.
We're
Until
ready for
you've been through
your
a
video,
storm.
but go ahead.
Whoops. Did I
Sorry.
lose everybody?
No, you're here. We hear you. Do you hear us?
did we lose Dan?
Well, we can hear him. I think he can't hear us. This darn Zoom. Let me see. We can still hear you, but you can jump out and in if something's wrong. Sent him a quick message because he said he couldn't. He thought he lost us, so I don't know. While we're waiting on him, because it is an interesting topic, and that's why I'm excited. I keep pushing him to do the preparedness because, like, I live in Indiana. We don't get these kind of troubles, thankfully, but we do get tornadoes, and you just never know. And it is important to be prepared, and I'm guessing that's what he was getting ready to tell us about is how we're
Well,
always
it's
prepared.
like where I live. Right now, everything below us is flooding. Randolph Air Force, or not Randolph, Kelly and Milford Hall area were flooding, and
Mm,
everything below me was flooding. And it's one of those things where you have to be smart enough not to drive into low water crossings. Stay home if you can. Avoid, if you live in a flood prone area,
Here we go.
evacuate. I mean,
yep.
some people were stuck in homes that were partially underwater because of this.
Hmm.
Now, I bought a house on a hill, one of the highest points in the area. So when it rains, the only thing I have to worry about is the roads. But
Yep.
it's one of those things you got to be prepared.
Hi, Alec. Thanks for joining us. Welcome, welcome. If you have any Seahorse questions or just want to chat about anything in particular, use that comment section. We're doing open chat tonight, so we're just talking about the storm, and I'm going to ask Holly about seahorses, but we're always here to answer questions and just chit chat. But Dan, what were you saying before you got before you got zoomed?
Um, where was I?
You were saying something about just being because I asked you in Georgia the problem is that they're just not
Yeah.
used to it, so they
So
run out of stuff. Or
Right. So what happens is somebody who's been through a storm has vividly in their mind what to expect. You have the prep, you have the event, and then you have the aftermath. And during the prep, there's a mass panic because most people aren't prepared ahead of time. So the last day or two before a storm, people are scrambling, and it's hard to picture. I like to tell people to think about it for just a second, that somebody came to your house, locked the doors so you could not go outside, turned your power off, turned your water off, turned your gas off, and
Mm,
now you've got to go for 24 hours, and then we're going to unlock the door, but you can't go anywhere because the roads are blocked,
mm,
and you can't, the stores are all closed, and you can't order anything because FedEx and UPS is not coming. So you got to stay in your house now for a week with no electricity. You, when they do turn the water back on, assuming you're on public water, you got to boil it.
mm.
Or if you're on a well, unless you have a generator, you have no water. It's
Yep.
trying to picture what you have to go through. And
I
for
can't
people with
imagine.
seahorse tanks,
Yeah.
when you have a tank, you got to think about, all right, how do I keep the tank circulating and oxygenated during this event? Both,
Mm,
during the storm itself, you can't, unless you have a stationary generator with an adequate doghouse, you can't run the generator during the storm. So during that period, you have no power because as soon as you get tropical force winds, you can expect to lose power, at least for some period
Hmm.
of time. And so you've got to sit there and figure out how to keep the tank circulating, oxygenated. Now you got to worry about how you're going to feed them, because if you don't have backup power, you're going to
oh,
lose your frozen foods.
I didn't even think of
And
that.
yeah. And what's worse is you're not going to be able to get frozen food probably for 2 or 3 weeks.
Hmm.
During Francis and Jean and after Wilma, the distributors lost power and lost all their frozen goods.
Oh
And
my
they had to wait
gosh.
on the shipments to come in before they could even send them out. So, this time of year, what I used to do was I would buy a one, I normally kept to try to order every 2 weeks, but this time of the year, I would up it to 4 to 6 weeks worth of food just in case. And because I could keep it frozen because I had the ability to keep it frozen during, the power outages.
Right.
And then you've also got to think about temperature, because
Oh,
not only are you got to worry about your circulation and feeding the guys, but now you don't have AC running, you don't have chillers running, and most generators that most people use, the backup generators, unless they have a room AC unit that's small, they can't run the central AC on the generator. So now you have to worry about that. And our way of dealing with that was, one, we put in a mini split, which I could run that room independent with the generator. But secondly, we would put 2 or 3 cases of bottled water in the freezer. I have a big chest freezer, and that way would strip the plastic off of them, and we could float them in the tank, take them out,
mhm.
fill them in some soapy water, rinse them, put them back in the freezer, and repeat. And
Right.
there was enough so we could constantly cycle. We wouldn't try to keep them at 72, but we did try to keep them below 78. And you know, it worked. I mean, I've never lost a seahorse to a storm, and I've been through a crap load of them.
Well,
13 to be
sorry, I didn't.
exact.
Dan, have you ever looked into any of the solar power generators?
Yeah, I have, but there's not enough for my needs
Right.
to run. Now, for somebody with a single tank, that might be, but you got to remember too, you have roughly 5 hours a day that you're going to get solar power,
Right.
Mm,
assuming you got good sun. and
Yeah, clear skies.
and
Yeah.
right now down here, I've got a solar hot water heater, and we've had cloudy days for the last 3 days, so I'm on electric backup now.
ooh.
And it's just you have to take that into account. It's the same issue you have on, people that are living off grid on a sailboat. They've got to, think about the days where it stays cloudy and you don't get the sun.
Well,
I don't think there's I think this. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
We lost her again. Oh, okay.
Um, I think they're a good thing to have. I to me, the way that I did it the first go round, was I stripped, at the time I was working in aviation, and I stripped the office of every UPS backup they had.
Mm,
So I had about 8 UPS 200 amp hour UPSs that I ran that kept a crew crap load of O2 pumps running. I had two boat batteries I took out of the boat that I hooked up to a inverter. So I had TV. I was watching what was happening the whole time, and I had the generator on the standby. So as soon as the storm stopped, I could use it. The problem was is that we had 24 hours of storm force wind, so
Mm.
we couldn't do anything for 24 hours except wait, you know. And other storms, I've since then, I've set it up so that I can plug my generator directly into the panel. I don't have to run extension cords or anything like that.
Right.
And the way my house is, I have two porches, the front and the back, and both of them are opposite of each other, and they're protected from two different directions opposite of each other. So if the winds are coming from the north or from the east, I can go to the back porch. If they're coming from the west or the south, I can put it on the front porch, and my cord is long enough to go to the panel. So, during the storm, I can set it outside where it's protected from the wind and the rain and run it during the storm. And I've poured a slab. I'm actually building a doghouse where I can run it, not have to move it, just turn it on and run it. And I'm putting an auxiliary gas tank on it so it can run for 24 hours without me touching it.
So smart. And as you were that I keep saying it, but that's I know you'll go in depth when you get your presentation ready. But that I was thinking at the beginning when you first started talking, I even think I even said, well, I live in Indiana, so I don't have to even think about this stuff. But it's really not true because some of the things you said, we had an ice storm here where we were out of
Yep.
everything, everything, you couldn't even open your front door, and it lasted, you had no electricity for a week. I didn't have seahorses back then. I was young, but I mean, it could happen
At
again.
least you
And
can keep the food frozen.
right, that's true. But like in
Well,
Holly's case
Yeah,
with the
but
fires, I mean, you got
yeah.
like there's different preparedness, but most of the stuff makes sense. And I just last thing I want to say is I do keep the one thing I do keep is those little battery powered air pumps because I've been in a situation where my electricity was out, not because I don't even remember why, but it was out for like 2 days, and so I didn't even think about the temperature, so I guess I just got lucky on that one. I think it was cold anyways outside, but I was doing the old fashioned cup of water and pour it back in for surface agitation and oxygen because I had no other options. But anyways,
Why
somebody
is
was
it
trying to
that you
talk.
can't run the generator during the storm?
what's that, Ray?
Why is it you can't run the
Well,
generator during
because
the
you've got
storm?
such strong winds blowing, and those winds are blowing at such a rate that you don't want to lose the generator, and you don't want water being blown into the electrical components of the generator.
That's r-
Um,
Yeah.
it's just
I just
extremely
set
dangerous
up
to run it.
some ductwork, furnace ductwork around them. I've got two generators and I run them in the storms.
Right, but you're not talking about 100-mile-an-hour winds blowing sideways into the generator
No,
That's true.
with water. I mean, at times it's torrential downpours,
Yeah.
and 100-mile-an-hour winds is strong enough, but you get up into, a Cat 2, Cat 3. I mean, you run the risk of that generator, if it's sitting outside exposed, of being knocked over and blown over and rolled somewhere.
uh,
You know, um,
well, there's
Yeah.
the
it
solution. Just move to London, Ontario. The closest we come to tornadoes is we get tornado warnings, and that's it.
There's good and bad everywhere. I mean, Florida's got, they can walk outside and shoot, Lucy goes and rescue seahorses from her backyard, or used to. Go ahead, Dan. What were you gonna say?
well, you have to look at the forces that are at play. And
Mhm.
and give me 1 second here, and I'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Let me copy this and let's paste it.
Yeah.
Um, the hell am I? I'm over here.
And if it
Paste
gets
it
much
here.
worse, those cars are going to be airborne.
Well, that's supposed to be a video, but the video's not playing for some damn reason.
Aw.
Yeah.
Um, but let me go to.
Well, I do. Anybody who is in Georgia who, is having struggling, or anybody who does struggle when these things happen, my heart goes out because I can't imagine. And being prepared is one thing, but like with Georgia, if they're just not used to it, Man.
Okay.
Yeah,
This is the kind of force that I'm talking about, Ray.
Mm.
This
Yeah.
is from a
right.
Cat 4. That bridge is in Charleston between Mount Pleasant and Sullivan's Island. And it took that bridge out amongst other things. In fact, the
Uh,
island itself, um, well, I'll show you.
They should have
But
had the infrastructure program in place before the storm.
well, infrastructure is more than what they're talking about for infrastructure.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I mean,
Eh,
I do believe in
natural
infrastructure,
catastrophe. Yeah.
but Green New Deal is not infrastructure.
The thing is
Um,
too, with a lot of when it's something like this that is a catastrophic event, it's not really a matter of infrastructure. It's the forces of nature
Mm.
that have created the problem.
well,
In
yeah, I
the areas
mean,
that do get tornadoes around here, a lot of the things that get destroyed is because the infrastructure hasn't been looked after when it should have been.
well, that is true, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done on our infrastructure, but they're trying to acquire money, but they're not really putting it towards the infrastructure. They're putting it for other things, and they're calling it
Yeah.
infrastructure. If
Well,
they were
I'm
putting all the money
fortunate.
for infrastructure, all of us would be in full agreement with it.
Yeah, I'm fortunate in terms of power because I live on the same grid as two military bases.
Oh wow.
So, guess who gets to keep power?
Well, what sucks for me is the guy behind me is on the same grid as the hospital, and so
Oh,
his street gets power, within a day or two, and I'm sitting there watching for 2 weeks, running a generator,
exactly.
looking at his behind running power. You know.
Jeez.
Now, this one, it'll come up. Where is it?
Yeah, when we
Okay,
had the big freeze,
this is again from
like,
Hurricane Hugo in Charleston.
yep,
And this, of course,
Jeez.
is on the barrier island, and this is where they had storm surge. The two islands, Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, were essentially, for all practical purposes,
mm,
leveled. Um, Most places down, as you can see, down to the foundation. And my house was about 20 miles inland from there, and I lost some shingles, and that was the extent of my damage. The guy next to me, his shed was about 10 feet from mine. The tin was still on my shed. His was in a ball 2 blocks down the street.
just depends on
Uh,
how it hits.
yep. The neighbor across the street had a pine tree that sliced their house in half right across the
Yep.
master bed. Um, one of my other friends down the street had the whole roof shifted 8 inches, to where it was still in place, but it was just moved over 8 inches down
Mhm.
on the roof.
Man.
Part of it too is going to be not just where it hits, but also how the structure was built.
Mm.
And with some of the newer stuff with the strap downs and uh, things like holding water heaters in place and stuff that they've implemented in Florida, I suspect have reduced the damage and to a certain extent.
Well, building codes down here have changed, and it's like when you buy stuff that's supposedly hurricane resistant, they're tested by shooting 2x4s at them at a certain speed. And
Mhm.
supposedly, when they do building, it's built, can it withstand, Cat 3, Cat 4, Cat 5? Um, and structures are rated based upon what they're supposed to be able to withstand. Now, Cat 3 to Cat 5 winds, you got to remember this with a storm like a hurricane, is you can hide from the wind, but you have to run from the water. And I don't
Mm.
care, how strong they build it. If you've got, a storm surge of 10 feet of water coming at you, combined with huge waves pounding on the building, it's very
Mhm.
tough to stand up to that.
Mm.
Well, and the thing is, even the ones that they're building off the ground on, I don't know what they call them, the pillar, but I call them pillar homes in Florida. Uh, they're up at the house itself is up at second story, and they're on large, uh, almost telephone poles. But the thing is, all it's going to take is the wind or a wave hitting it, and it's still coming down.
Mm.
Well, it depends upon how high,
Yeah.
if you look at some of the hurricane designed homes that are on, like you're talking about, they're actually, it is telephone poles. and they're on those big poles. They usually have the bottom set up like a garage or something, but
Mm-hmm.
the bottom is designed to give out.
Mm-hmm.
Everything except for the poles gives way so that the water can move underneath and around the structure.
Yeah.
And your best homes are more round in design, and things like your porches and your overhangs are designed to rip off.
Yes.
But the
Mm.
structure itself, the primary structure, is designed to withstand it.
Well, I think it was Katrina. We saw some of that in areas east of New Orleans, in that area where some of the structures really did not sustain large amounts of damage, but they'd been built specifically for that purpose.
Well, see, that's another great example of forethought because how many people in Katrina went up into their attics and were trapped?
Oh,
Oh, it was
You
went
know,
on for days.
right. What we do every storm is my chainsaw and a 6 foot steel pry bar goes in the house along with my battery operated sawzall, so that
Mm-hmm.
if worst comes to worst, we can cut ourselves out of the damn structure
Out.
if we have to.
Yeah.
that is smart. Because you're right. I mean, oh, this. Just even looking at the pictures, it's just devastating, and I can't even imagine.
Well,
Oh,
there was people in New Orleans that drowned in their attic,
right.
and
Oh,
Yes.
if
jeez.
and that's where if you had the pry bar and some type of cutting device to cut a hole to get out,
Right.
you know, um, it's rough, and you know the hard part to imagine is you just can't go running outside when everything goes to crap because that picture that I showed before, which was supposed to be a video, where to go, where to go, where to go, bridge. Oh, it's in the other directory. Um,
Well, and the thing is too, while he's looking for that, it's like here, I live up on a hill. I specifically live up on high area because I know the kind of flooding we get here. There's two more homes being built down in the low water area right near the lake, less than a half mile from my home. Now, what's going to happen every time we get rain like we've had this year, where everything is flooding? People just don't
now,
plan for what can happen.
no, they don't. I'll bring that up over here if it will run.
Oh, I can see this stuff flying.
Yeah, the debris in the air is, it's a trash can lid at 120 miles an hour will take you out.
Hmm.
Right.
Um, a bloody beach ball will. You've got all that force with the wind behind it, and even though it's a light object, it can still do tremendous amount of damage. Oh, come on.
Because of the rate of speed that they're traveling at because of the force of the winds.
Right. Hey, Dan,
Exactly.
while you're pulling it up, or whatever, how? So, what is the worst hurricane or storm that you've been through with seahorses? And I mean, you already said you haven't lost any, but what was
I
a
went
cat,
through,
whatever?
yeah, I've been through a cat two, two cat threes. Um, I have to go look at the entire list, and then two or three cat ones, as
Mm.
well as uh, I think three or four tropical storms.
And
Um,
and not only didn't lose the seahorses or tanks, but your home and everything was okay.
no, I had damage. Don't
Oh,
there wasn't no such thing as no damage.
gotcha.
I did in fact have damage.
Well, I didn't mean to
But
interrupt whatever you were
that's
getting ready to say. I was just curious because, yeah, that'd be terrible.
Well, the other thing to keep in, whether it be a flooding or a hurricane or whatever, 6 inches of rapidly moving water can take the average human off their feet.
Mm,
All it takes is 6 inches.
yeah, and it's.
well,
I mean,
I've heard
okay,
that before that all it takes is 6 inches.
Can take less.
just crazy. And I mean, Holly, is your area getting ready to go through fires again, or is it seasonal?
We've been having fires. Yeah,
Oh,
there hasn't been any close enough to me so far to worry about, but we've had some 30 miles away. And yeah, there's fires all over Northern California right now, and we're about to go into another heat
Another
wave
hot-
starting Friday, going to be between 100 and 115. And so a lot of
Is that
our
down in
fires
Chico?
lately have been people starting fires.
Now, what kind of idiot? I'm sorry, but I don't
Yeah,
understand.
it's
Like,
a psychological issue some people have
apparently.
here. Seriously.
And so, what's your? I'm just curious. I know you've talked about this before, but you know, with the nature related crisis that happens in your area, is your preparedness kit like a take with me tank, or what? Or are you just getting out yourself?
Buckets?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
No, I'm prepared to take the seahorses. Buckets, pumps. I pack like a 5 gallon bucket with enough salt mix and dechlorinator and what I need to set up for a while. I have a friend's house that I can go to and bring the seahorses and set them up, to where they'll be okay. Um, I have ice chests for their food, battery pumps. I have like hang on back filters and things so they can have filtration. And yeah, so when there's a fire, within reason, we usually know within a few days, kind of like Dan saying with the hurricanes. If there's a big one and it's, getting closer, I can have my truck packed, in less than a day with all the emergency supplies and our important papers and things and be ready just in case we have to evacuate. Also, not happening this year. Last summer, we had power shutoffs all the
Mm-hmm.
time
Mm-hmm.
because PG&E, after they were found guilty of burning down our town, there was a state mandate that went out that whenever there was high fire danger, they were to shut off power.
Hmm.
Well, it didn't work out so well. They got a lot of backlash for that. So they loosened that up this year because we can't have all the power out
Yeah.
when it's like 115 degrees.
Right. That's crazy.
So they have not done the power shutoffs so far this
Well, that's
year
good.
in my
That's
area,
good to know because I
which is
remember
good.
that.
But
I
they're not
remember you
prepared
having to
for
use
that
water
too. So
bottles and
we have
freaking out and trying to
generators
keep the
and all
tank
that.
cool. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have to do that. I have generators. The generators we have is enough to run all my fish tanks and the refrigerator freezer. So their
Mm.
food stays cold and
There it is, Dan.
yeah.
I'll make him big again. But no, I
But
hear
yeah,
you,
so
Holly.
we were evacuated for 3 weeks one time,
Mm.
and I didn't have the seahorses yet, but we had other fish and we lost them all
Sure.
Oh,
because we weren't able to come home.
jeez.
Is
Well,
that a
what you
gas
do?
station?
Was.
Was,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's
It-
the scariest thing. And that's one thing that I do hope you cover at some point on a Wine Wednesday, Dan, is just like what you showed us last week after we were no longer live. How how you watch um, how you watch all the charts and stuff and see how see what's coming. Because as Holly said, you got a couple days notice or whatever, but sometimes not. Like I'm sure Georgia didn't realize it was going to hit Georgia. You know what I mean? Like it twists and goes
I,
different
I've
places.
I've never been caught by surprise in terms of um, not knowing a hurricane was coming.
Right.
Um, you do get warning. Now, what is a surprise is what you're expecting can change, and you always have to be prepared for intensity to increase or direction to change. If you go back and look at what happened to us in 2004, we got hit with Francis, and 3 weeks to the day, we got hit by Gene. Now, Gene was coming at us, and we were going, oh, shit. And what happened was it turned direction. It went back out to sea,
Mm.
and everybody had this huge, big sigh of relief, but it made a big loop and came right
Yeah.
back and hit exactly where Francis hit.
Oh my gosh.
3 weeks to the day later. So we had gotten power back. We had power back for about 5 or 6 days, and then we got whacked with a second one. And um, fortunately, we got power back much sooner after that one because the crews were already all here. Everything was in place. The stuff that much of the stuff they had replaced held up. And it took 5 days to get the power back on instead of almost 2 weeks.
I mean, that's good.
Was that the one that came across, went back across Florida, and then turned around and came back? Was that Irene?
It was Gene. Yes. Well,
Eugene.
no, it didn't go across Florida. It went across. I'll find a picture of it here. Um,
I'm gonna check out now, folks.
Oh.
I'm gonna go feed my seahorses and then I'm gonna go lie down for a bit.
Well,
You
take
stay
care,
safe.
Ray.
Next
Thanks
week.
for take care. Thanks for jumping in, just for chatting when we can.
By the way, got kicked off of the Facebook feed again, and now it just says error every time I try to get back on again.
Oh, no.
Just so you know.
On
Night
Wine
all.
Wednesday?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, I'll try to figure that
Night.
out. Sorry. Thanks for letting me know. Anybody else having that problem? I guess I don't see many people from Facebook in here. So apologies. If you
What
watch
the
this
heck's
later
wrong
and you
with
were
my
on
damn-
Facebook, I'll try to figure out what happened. Apologies.
No, it sent me the link, so mine was okay.
You can still see it?
Yeah, it sent me a notification on my Facebook when you started,
Mm-hmm.
and I shared it, and it's playing on my Facebook page, so mine's fine.
Okay. Well, all right. Yeah, it's showing on mine too, so I'm not sure. But either way, yeah. And while Dan's looking things up,
There we
There
go.
it is.
Chris is making some excellent topics for future weeks. I really like them, Chris. You're just gonna have to come play the game with us. All right, go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
So, whoops, damn it. That wasn't what I wanted. So you can, I want to make this bigger if I can. Oh, you're not going to do it, huh?
Yeah,
There
it
we go.
goes backwards.
So you can see the track where the storm was coming up and it went up like this and came around and then straight into us.
What was
See,
the
see how it
one?
made the loop?
What was the one that went across Florida, went back across Florida, and then turned around and hit him a third time? Actually, a third time.
I don't remember. I vaguely remember it didn't affect us as
It,
much,
it
but
hit farther
I,
north.
I remember it
Mostly.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, you just have to be prepared for whatever, because there's when a storm is heading across, you should be paying attention, and like watching the models on this last storm. The models were not even showing it doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Hurricane Center came out, and all of a sudden they had a storm track, and I'm like, wait a minute, why? Because
Yeah.
the models aren't showing anything, and the models are only so good. Fortunately, the people at the Hurricane Center recognized that what was going to happen, and they have to keep adjusting. And you have to also remember that the prediction of where these storms are going to go at about 4 to 5 days out, they're usually the margin of error is 200 miles off.
Yeah.
That is a huge area.
That's a lot.
And the other thing you have to look at is the models, whether they're in consensus or are they spread out all over the place. Because if you're looking at, the Euro and the GFS and the Canadian model and the Navy model, et cetera, and they're all showing different tracks, well, the models are not in agreement, and there's a good likelihood that they really don't know where the damn thing's going to go.
Exactly.
But when you see all of the models showing the same path, then there's that type of agreement. You're pretty confident of where it's going to go. Now, the intensity forecast is where they're having the hardest time coming up with, because there's so many variables that are involved in it, but the models themselves are not real good at forecasting intensity.
Mm.
And we've seen hurricanes blow up right before they hit land, where they're cat 1, cat 2, no big deal, and all of a sudden, in a matter of 24 hours they're cat 4.
What was it,
It's
Sandy Hook that got hit like that? That area in New Jersey?
um it did a lot of damage, but that was a weird storm because that wasn't like a true hurricane. It was almost more like a nor'easter. And it did intensify. But what happens is sometimes up there, like if you think of the movie The Perfect Storm,
Mm-hmm.
um, that was the year after I had a hurricane at sea. And in that case, you had three different storms that came together that created one superstorm.
Mm.
And it thus the name The Perfect Storm. And I mean, that thing was just, it was much worse than a typical hurricane up in that area in terms of the amount of damage. It didn't really go so much on land, but what it did at sea, um,
It was devastating.
yeah, there was, we know the one boat went down, but, and there was this guy in a sailboat with two girls, and in the movie they rescued them. But in real life, what happened was the guy was taking these two girls to Bermuda, and they were, heading out, and the seas got rough. So they battened down the hatches, zipped everything up, and went down below and just went to let it ride it out. And the girls were just freaking out. So
Mm.
he called the Coast Guard. The Coast Guard came out and picked up the two girls, and they virtually made him leave the boat. He didn't want to leave.
Oh wow.
And they, they told him there's no coming back a second time.
Yeah.
It's you're on your own 100%. So he left. And after the storm was over, he chartered a plane, and he flew the coastlines, and he found his boat in Maryland on the beach.
Oh my
Yep.
gosh.
He
Wow.
had it
Yep.
drug off the beach, took 24 hours to go over it and get some supplies, and then sailed it back to Bermuda.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, what was
Well,
the one that
the
went
thing
straight
that
up the
bugs
middle?
me the most about these, I mean, I understand there's nothing we can do about it, but like, I'll never forget the very last live Macna. There were other reasons that I was unable to make it. I had some trouble with the airport passport stuff. But I was already, like, I remember talking with you, Dan, and even you with that one were not sure what was going to happen with it, and so it was really, and then it ended up being almost nothing, right? What was it, Dorian, was that?
I don't remember the name of the storm, but I
Think so.
remember telling Abby, that we need to, the people at Macna are going to be running into a problem.
Right.
And what I was looking at was not so much that you guys were going to get in danger so much as what was going to happen to the flights and everything shutting down.
Yeah.
And I saw the potential of you being trapped for a few days before you could get out of there.
Wait, no, wait, are you talking about the New Orleans thing or the Florida? It seems
The
like
Macna,
every year at Macna there's some terrible, but
right? No,
anyways.
it was one of the events that you went to, and you got out
New
of there on
Orleans.
time.
Yep, New Orleans. I remember that when Abby reached out and was like, "Hey, you might want to be aware
Well,
of this stuff."
I
I really appreciated
I
that.
remember a few years back, the one in New Orleans, and
Yeah.
several people that I know had gone out there, and when this storm was coming in, they got out of there well in advance.
Yeah. Well, I
Now,
ended up
I
not
remember
leaving
that.
early, but my flight was just really good timing. Like literally, the flights right after me didn't didn't get to leave and got stuck there. So I got very very lucky, but I still appreciated the warning. And yeah, and like I was just saying, it was 2 years ago, right before COVID. The last Macna before COVID was in Florida, and I had planned to visit Dan, and I had all these great plans, and then you know and what are the bad months, because I'm sitting here thinking I'm coming to Florida in December, so what are the bad months?
hur-
Is December a bad month?
hurricane season is officially over in
Okay.
December.
Okay, good.
Now, it doesn't, we've had a couple of late storms, but the water's cooled down, so it's not as bad. Um, but what I look at is the Bermuda High, and where the Bermuda High is dictates where the one, if the storm can come across, and two, where they're going to go.
Mm.
And the Bermuda High is this high pressure that sits out here in the Atlantic, and it moves around. But your storms come off the coast of Africa down here. So that what happens is, if you watch, there's storms over here right now, but see this high, the red is a high pressure area.
Okay.
So that high pressure area is like a wall. Now there's something that develops down here. Let's see, that's July 5th. Okay, so this is what are we at, 7th today? So
Yeah.
this is 2 days ago. That's the storm down there. And it's going to come up and it's looking for a window to go north. And
Mm.
it's going to try to move in between high pressure systems is how they normally do it. But this storm that was over here, high pressures come in and basically just taking it out.
Yep.
And with this high pressure sitting there, think of it as a blockade that prevents storms from coming across. So as you go through in time, that storm follows that ridge and goes up north. Here's another storm. If this Bermuda High was not strong down here, this thing would come off this coast and come right across like this.
Yep.
Mm.
But because of that high pressure, it can't go anywhere.
Mhm.
Now it
Gotcha.
tries to push in, but the high pressure also means there's dry air. So it's not able to develop like it wants to. And if you sit here and watch this and go several days, and we're going up through, there's a storm right there that's trying to come out. Once again, the high pressure takes it out. But going all the way up to the 23rd, yep, the 23rd, I don't see anything developing according to the models. Now, once again, I don't
That can change, right?
forget about that until the 23rd. I'm going to pay attention over time. But right now we're looking at, a couple of weeks of not worrying about anything where I am. But these storms, depending upon where this high pressure is, if you think about it and watch, they have a typically they follow a pattern each year
Hmm.
in terms of where they're going. For example, last year everything was in the Gulf, and the reason for that is number one where they form, but number two is
The
the high
high.
pressure keeps pushing them south, and so they get over to the Gulf before they can turn north.
Huh.
Now, some years you'll see them where it's like North Carolina Outer Banks gets whacked over and over and over. And that's because the Bermuda High is further east and the storms are able to come across, turn northward before they get to
Exactly.
Florida. And they almost always, it seems like they give North Carolina a kiss as they move off out to sea.
Huh.
Um, and then, of course, there's a potential for them, depending upon the highs, for Florida. Florida is a huge state. And people don't realize how long this state is, but it's to get it's about 12 hours of driving to get from North Florida to Key West.
Mm.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of area. Miami can get hit with a storm, and well, it's just like this storm. We're not feeling any of the effects from it here, even though it's affecting parts of Florida. We go over here to where the storm is, where it's going up there.
Yeah,
Now,
it hit the
where we are,
panhandle.
yeah, where we are is over here on the East Coast. The
Hmm.
closest it got to us was almost 200 miles, and the winds are extending out about the strong winds are extending out about 75 miles. So it's 125 miles away from us, the edges of it.
So now
Yep.
for the
And
really,
that's
really important question, Dan. Are you excited to not have to worry about 5 million tanks during the season? Does it help at all?
it's a whole different perspective because in my case, first of all, I had to bring everything in from outside.
Mm-hmm.
So that in preparation, outside preparation is a full day for me to put up all the windows covered, put everything away so it can't be blown around, secure it so they don't become flying missiles. And then
Right.
I also have to get, load up on water. So usually I'm trying to make sure I have at least 1,000 gallons of salt water on hand,
Yeah.
Phew.
ideally just a little bit more. Um, I'm trying to get the tanks prepped by cleaning and scrubbing and getting them as clean as possible because on the day of the event, I'm going to kill the lights and they're going to and run minimal equipment. It's going to be, I'll turn skimmers off. I'll turn anything I don't have to run off so that when the power goes out, I can fire up the generator and not try to run every single thing.
You're
Um,
also looking at males that are going to be dumping the fry if they're close to delivery time because they're
or
going to feel different
they're going to be mating.
pressure.
Um, but usually what I do is I make the room go on the day of the event. I turn the lights off in the room and keep it dark because they'll bed down and they
Yeah.
exert less energy. I don't feed them. I'm just preparing for the worst, you know. And
Yeah.
the other thing that we had to worry about was our back building is an aluminum building,
Ooh.
and it's rated for up to a Cat 3. I think Cat 2. They said Cat 3, but um, to me, that's, you know, I don't want brood stock in a building like that.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, and then there's the other aspects of it. Like right now, working in a hardware store, you know, I'm pretty much stuck at work, you know, leading up to the storm because of people coming in trying to buy stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and you know, when we were in New England, every time there was a storm, Abby was a nurse, so she had to go to the hospital, and she was pissed because, you know, she had to work in the hospital during every storm. They wanted the extra manpower in case. You know, I had the same thing with EMS when I worked in Charleston. You know, when events like that happen, it doesn't matter whether you're off duty or not, you get pulled in.
You're
And
not off duty when a
no, no,
catastrophe's
is
coming
that,
in.
yeah. And that was another thing that helped me a lot was the fact that having worked EMS for a number of years, disaster preparedness was something that we were taught. And
Right.
you know, I think things differently probably than most people. And having been through the storms, you know, I really know what to expect. Um, and you know, the
Well,
other thing I have now is the option. If a Cat 5 was coming, I have the option of evacuating should I choose to.
yes.
But
Right.
the problem is what most people don't realize: evacuating is not always the best thing. Um, Quite often, you can get stuck on the highway. You know, people they run out of gas. You know, along the route, there's traffic jams,
Yeah.
and if you're not careful, you can put yourself in a worse position than staying put.
One of the interesting things I'm seeing looking at this is we've been getting torrential rains here. I mean, we're talking in some instances 4 to 5 inches in a day. And every one of these is a circular motion of clouds coming off the Gulf in a counterclockwise direction. And it's almost like a mini hurricane in a way because that's what's been bringing in all the rain and flooding into this. And I haven't seen it like this in years.
You know, it almost seems like the after effect, like after, Tanya, stop. The after the storm, like the storm's bad enough, but everything that happens afterwards seems worse, and all of the areas that get the side effects, like Cheryl's talking about the floods and
Well, yeah, the thing is, this has been going on not just this week. This has been going on for several weeks. We're totally saturated. I mean,
oh
and when you're getting 5 and 6 inches of rain in a day, and it's going on for several days,
yeah,
it gets old.
and Holly's over there saying,
Well,
"Geez, I
Spend
wish
some of
we
that
had some
harvest.
rain."
Yeah,
If
we
I could
really
send you
need it.
some, I would.
And we're seeing, I mean, in the Northwest, above me, like places like Oregon and Washington are getting worse heat than we are. And
Yeah.
they're not used to that. People up there a lot of them don't even have air conditioning because they never need it.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah.
And you
so
got Portland, Oregon hit, I saw 117 degrees.
So,
A
not to
week.
get into a big climate change debate here or anything like that, but just out of curiosity, Dan, you study these hurricanes and you're so good at reading the charts and stuff, and obviously you pay attention to the news and the fires and floods and all that. Is it getting worse? I mean,
Well,
are there more hurricanes
we're
happening? And go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, there is. Okay. There is more hurricanes happening. We're on a cycle where there's going to be more hurricanes. And if you pay attention to the sun and the sunspot activity
Oh
and
yeah.
look at historically at hurricane patterns, you're going to find that there's periods of years where there's more hurricanes and there's periods where there's less.
So you
And
don't think
uh,
it's building up?
well, I'm not going to say that it is or it isn't. You know, to me, there's a difference between climate change and global warming. Um,
Right. Right.
Climate change happens and has happened throughout time. You know, this planet has gone through massive climate change over, you know, millions of years. And it's going to continue doing that with or without us. The question is how much, or, the argument that comes up is how much we're impacting it.
Right.
And,
And yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
you know, and to me, the problem I have with that part of it is not that it's not possible that we're impacting it. It's how they're monetizing it and people are profiting from it, and then what they're saying is it's all fossil fuels. Well, I beg to differ, because one of the one of the things you never hear about is how much deforestation we do.
Oh,
And take Florida, for example, the amount of pavement and the amount of concrete that we have down here acts like a huge heat sink. So where there was plants that took that energy and turned it into growth, now turns into a heat sink that radiates that heat, that energy. So there's parts of Florida where it's 1 to 2 degrees warmer just because of that.
wow.
And
I
you don't
I
ever hear,
totally believe that too. Like my husband says, we've lost so much here due to fire, especially in my community. Our whole community, is gone. All the trees are gone from a large part of the area. There's not as much shade now. There's
yep,
not the protection from the sun that we used to have.
I'm
So
trying. I'm
not
trying to show the trees behind you. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I live in the forest, but see, also we noticed a change in our winter a little bit
yep,
too, in
Mm,
that it was actually colder.
huh.
sure.
One
But
of the things that's
it's like
happening
insulation, the trees are insulating us.
is,
Right. But you've also got massive deforestation happening down in South America in the
yes.
Amazon.
Oh
And
man.
you take areas like that, the Amazon rainforest down there has a global impact.
Sure.
And, it's not just what we do here, it's the whole globe. It's all one big system. And you can't take one little piece and say that's the problem. It's
Mhm.
a systematic problem around the globe, if in fact
Well,
we are causing it.
yeah,
Well, it's just
it's
it's
deforestation
just
and
scary to me because it's getting hotter and colder and stormier, and I need it to stop. But
well,
Well,
I was
you
just
know,
reading a report that was stating how much smaller the snowpack is in many of our national parks, including Yosemite, Yellowstone, Grand Tetons, uh, all over, and how the snowpack is less, the rain is less. On top of that, you've got the pine beetle that's killing the trees, which has
mhm.
been going on for many years. And so you're getting deforestation in our national parks. Well, it's happening throughout the areas, not just in the parks. It was one of the points that they made.
Mhm.
And it's basically it's an ecological disaster making.
Sure. Hey Dan, were you trying to show
It's
us?
sad.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you were done, Cheryl.
w-
Were you trying to show us anything else? Or saying what were you saying?
It's okay.
well, what I was pulling up was the map with the heated water and the cyclone heat potential, and
Yeah.
this is
Mm,
why this time of year we don't have such strong storms. Um, if you look, you can see the colors on it, and the closer you get to red, the more heat potential there is. Now, this map right now does is not very impressive. When we get into August and into
Oh,
September, you're going to see a lot of red, and you're going to see a lot more heat that's developed in the waters that once they've warmed up, and that's why we get stronger storms. Now,
that
we
makes
also
sense.
have one of the things that controls the hurricanes. One of the big factors is what happens in the Pacific Ocean, whether we have El Nino or La Nina. Um, that has a great impact on our storms.
well, that and we're getting glacial melt, which basically you think that the glaciers are melting, so it's going to cool. In reality, the reason they're melting is because our seas are warming up in the polar regions, which is also going to have a detrimental effect.
Yep. Now, according to some of the stuff that I've read, we're on the verge of going back into another mini ice age.
Jeez.
That-
If you
yeah.
and when they say mini ice age, that means we're not talking about ice age like before, but a period of cooling. And the planet does that. I mean, if you think about it, look back at the medieval times. I mean, that was a period of extreme heat. There was global warming during that period. And um, I mean, look at Greenland. Greenland was named Greenland because at one time it was green.
Yeah. Well, Greenland was green on the outside and uh, basically an icicle in the center.
Yeah.
Just like Iceland was ice on the outside and green in the center.
So, hey guys, as important as this topic is, and hopefully we'll hear more about it from Dan in the presentation. We're not live on YouTube anywhere. I don't know. Ray said we weren't live on Facebook, and then Chris just said now we're not live on YouTube. So, not sure what's going on, but I didn't want to continue this important conversation when I think it'll upload properly, but not sure what's happening, so apologies to anyone who watches this
Also,
later.
we're not talking about seahorses.
Right, right. I mean, okay, I guess that's okay, but it's still a very important topic. And Holly, I did want to ask, I'm gonna end the stream in like 5 minutes, and of course we can chat afterwards if you want. But was there anything you wanted to share? Did you set up your tubs yet? Anything going on with you?
No. I've had, things come up that I have to put that off for a little while, but I'm not in a hurry because nobody's getting pregnant.
Yep.
But I do have an update on my lighting I was having trouble with. I
Mhm.
got a hold of the company that manufactures it, Current. They make the Orbit marine lights. And so it had gotten to the point where it wouldn't even come on at all, or then it would come on once in a while and I never knew when. And so I just decided, heck, I'm just going to replace the whole thing. So I went online to try and order it, and the order wouldn't go through. It kept charging my card and refunding it. So I couldn't get a hold of them on the phone, ended up getting a hold of them through email. And then a representative called me this morning and helped me over the phone and actually diagnosed, we're pretty sure what is wrong. And it was actually the power cord, he
Oh wow.
thinks. So I'm replacing, he